Continuing with Big Ten week here on LouTube. Today, a video that we did last week for the ACC. Going to do it today for the Big Ten. This is a topic we talked about a lot last night on the live show, which if you don't know, we do a live show every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's a call-in show. I take calls from viewers and we talk college football. Make sure you guys check those out if you haven't already. But up today, we're going to rank the coaches in the Big Ten. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and sometimes they're even watchable. Give this video a thumbs up. Doesn't take you any time at all, doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps me out a lot. So go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. At the end of this video, be sure and let me know down in the comment section below where I'm wrong or if you agree with me. And if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends. Facebook, Twitter, post a link on Instagram, whatever it happens to be. I'm trying to get to 20,000 subscribers by the start of the college football season, and I can't do it without you guys' help. All right, ranking the Big Ten coaches. We're going to do this the same way we did the ACC coaches. I'm going to count them down in order from what I think is the worst coach of the Big Ten all the way up to what I think is the best. Of course, Urban Meyer gone from the Big Ten after several years there, and of course, while he was there, unanimously, I think, considered the best coach in the Big Ten. With him leaving, this opens up the door. Who's the new best coach in the Big Ten? We're going to try to figure that out today. Just like I did for the ACC, there are two new coaches in the Big Ten. I'm not going to include them anywhere in my list for the purposes of this video. I don't think it's fair to try to find a place to put these two new coaches within the list of existing coaches. I just really don't think there's a fair way to do that. Two new coaches, of course, being Mike Locksley, I think it's Mike Locksley over at Maryland, and Ryan Day stepping in to take over for Urban Meyer. Now, of course, Ryan Day been under Urban Meyer for a while and even coached the first, was it 3 or 4 games of the season last year when Urban Meyer was serving his suspension for some issues involving Zach Smith and not reporting domestic violence and things like that at Ohio State University. So he steps in to take over that program. And then, of course, Locksley, longtime assistant at Maryland years ago. Of course, most recently, offensive assistant at the University of Alabama. He's now at Maryland, taking over for them. So we'll see how those two guys do in their first year at their respective schools. But we're going to start this list then with I guess number 12. All right, I really it's hard to know really, is this Chris Ash's fault? I have him at 12, head coach of Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers just not a very good program traditionally. They had a few years under Greg Schiano where they vastly outperformed their average win total, over the course of their history or whatever. He's long gone though, stint in the NFL, now back as an assistant in college. But Chris Ash at Rutgers, I mean, 2-10 his first year, 4-8 his second year. So you're thinking, okay, maybe we got something going here. Then last year reverts back, a 1-11 season last year. I mean, this is just pitiful. I do feel bad for Rutgers. Like I mentioned, they're not traditionally a big-time football program, and they're in one of the toughest divisions in all of college football, of course, the Big Ten East, with teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. So real tough to sort of break through there. But he hasn't improved Rutgers at all over what it was before. I don't think anybody expected Chris Ash to come in and compete for division titles or win 9 or 10 games. But when you're sitting on, 2, 6, 7 wins in 3 seasons, that's not good. This is his first head coaching job, and it might be his last. If he has another season this year of 1, 2, 3, or 4 wins, Rutgers may very well get rid of him, and he'll find himself out of a job. But I've got Chris Ash coming in last on this list at number 12. All right, up next, another coach that's, or a coach that's been around forever. Spent a lot of time in the NFL with teams like the Chicago Bears and I think the Buccaneers. Of course, I'm talking about Lovie Smith head coach of Illinois. Illinois, one of those teams, you almost forget they exist every single year. I've been doing these videos on this channel for 4 or 5 years, and I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've gotten comments having anything to do with Illinois. 3-9 last year, or I'm sorry, 3-9 his first year, 2-10 his second year, 4-8 last year. So, you know, maybe you're clinging on to some hope here. He doubled his win total in year 3 from what it was in year 2, going from 2 wins in 2017 to 4 wins in 2018. And he did play a ton of young players over the last couple of years. So he's going to have a veteran team this year. All of his players now are there, right? This is his 4th year. So very few players left on this team from the previous staff. So this is sort of a make or break year, I think, too, for Lovie Smith. Now, Illinois is another team that has almost zero expectations year in and year out. So I'm not trying to suggest they're going to fire Lovie Smith if he only wins 3, 4, 5 games or something like that. But eventually, if he's just treading water, you would think they would look in a different direction. But we'll see how they do this year. I would think people expect them to win more than 4 games because of all the veteran leadership they have returning on that team, ton of experience. But again, the talent level is just not there. If they could somehow get to 6-6, I think that would be a successful season. But I've got Lovie Smith coming in at number, 11 on the poll. All right, number 9, Tom Allen. Is it Tom Allen? I think it is Indiana. Been there 2 years, 5-7, 5-7 both years, treading water. The 2 years previous to that, under the old coaching staff, 6 wins and 6 wins. So again, Indiana, a team that, you know, no one expects really to do anything that meaningful during the college football season. But anytime you make a coaching change, you're obviously looking for improvement, regardless of what state your football program is in when you make the change. You don't make a change unless you're looking for improvement. So again, the 2 previous years, 6 wins, 6 wins, they make the change. They bring in Tom Allen, 5-7, 5-7. We'll see what he does this year in year 3. But Indiana, like Illinois, a team that you almost forget about. Of course, Indiana traditionally a big-time basketball school. Thank you for Tom Crean, by the way. I know a lot of people don't think Tom Crean's an elite coach or anything like that, but when it comes to Georgia basketball, we'll take just about anything we can get at this point. But anyway, I've got Tom Allen and Indiana coming in next on this list. All right, now's where it starts to get a little bit difficult for me in terms of trying to rank some of these Big Ten coaches. There's a group of coaches within the Big Ten, and almost everybody that called in on the live show last night said exactly the same thing or something along these lines. There's a handful of coaches in the Big Ten that seem to get the absolute most out of the limited talent available in terms of their ability to recruit and things like this. And when I say ability to recruit, I'm not talking about the coach's ability or inability to recruit. I'm talking more about the school here and the fact that none of these schools are traditionally football-rich schools. They don't have very many built-in or inherent advantages like an Ohio State or a Michigan or a Penn State. But these coaches, year in and year out, seem to overachieve. They seem to exceed expectations. Honestly, there's several coaches coming up here on this list who I would not be at all surprised if they got snatched up by another Power 5 team, maybe a team that's considered a tier above the team that they're currently on. But let's just get to it. I think it's what are we, number 9 here, 12, 11, 10, 9. PJ Fleck, Minnesota. This is a guy whose name gets mentioned from time to time about possible coaching spots at other places. People like this guy. He's very well respected within the coaching profession, and he knows what he's doing. Now, unfortunately, 5-7 and 7-6, not really getting it done. In fact, I think Minnesota won 9 games the year before he got there. But again, Minnesota, just a forgettable team. The ACC has several teams that are like this. I guess every conference has teams that are like this. But for whatever reason, PJ Fleck is a hot name. He's considered an excellent recruiter. But again, at Minnesota, there's zero incentive for a recruit to go to Minnesota outside of maybe playing time or no offers to other places. It's not knocking Minnesota. It's just this is not traditionally considered to be a football school. Very hard to recruit there. But PJ Fleck comes in 8 on this list, head coach Minnesota. All right, and this brings us to probably the hottest name in the Big Ten, really, in terms of offers to other places. And again, you could have this guy third or fourth, and it would be hard for me to argue with you. It's very hard to rank these coaches, I think, from about 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. Jeff Brohm at Purdue, one of the top offensive minds in college football, without question, right? 3 conference wins. Purdue. People forget because Purdue, unlike some of these schools we've talked about already in this video, Purdue has had some good to great years within the last 15 to 20 to 25 years. Of course, Drew Brees was there for a while. So Purdue has had some good teams, but so maybe you don't remember this. I certainly will admit I didn't. Before Brohm got to Purdue, Purdue had a total of 3 conference wins in a 4-year period. 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. In those 4 seasons, Purdue won a total of 3 conference games. Since he's got there, 9 wins the last 2 years and back-to-back bowl games. So he has really turned Purdue around from the direction it was headed and the place it was at when he got there. He just recently turned down a huge contract from Louisville to become their head coach. And of course, Purdue renegotiated his contract, gave him a raise and an extension. 2 seasons ago, his name came up in the Tennessee search, but everybody's name came up in the Tennessee search. Let's just be real. But the point is, Jeff Brohm is one of the hottest young coaches in college football, considered an offensive genius. Watch Purdue play a couple of games this year. If you didn't last year, watch them this year. A lot of you maybe watched the Ohio State versus Purdue game. That's a good example of what you get from a Jeff Brohm offense. Now, they got to become more consistent and I think recruit at a little bit of a higher level if they really want to compete for anything meaningful within the Big Ten. But again, that's not easy to do at Purdue. Jeff Brohm getting the absolute most out of the available talent he can get at Purdue. And he comes in, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8 on this list. Number 7, Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern. And again, if you want to put this guy 3 or 4, or if you want to put him 8, I mean, you really can put this guy in a lot of different places. Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern. He's been there forever. He attended Northwestern, and he's been coaching there, I think, since 2006, if I remember right. And since then, he's guided Northwestern to 9 bowl games. Northwestern was one of the worst football programs in America for decades. Pat Fitzgerald comes in, 9 bowl games since 2006 when he took over. Of course, they were 9-5 last year and won their division, and before losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. But listen to, can I even read what I wrote here? Listen to this. Knowing how bad Northwestern has been over the course of its history, okay? They finished the season under Pat Fitzgerald ranked 4 times. 3 times they've won 10 or more games. I mean, they've only done that I think 4 or 5 or 6 times in their entire history. And Pat Fitzgerald has done it 3 times since 2006. So if you want to move this guy up higher on the list, I certainly wouldn't have an argument with you, but this is where he is on my list this year. All right, number 6, Paul Chryst, Wisconsin. Another one that I struggle with. Wisconsin, obviously the best team over the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever period you want to look at, in the weaker of the 2 divisions in the Big Ten being the Big Ten West, right? Wins the division the majority of the time. Although they didn't win it last year. But if you look at Paul Chryst at Wisconsin, 10-plus wins every year the last 4 years, except for last year when he went 8-5. A couple of 12-win seasons, of course, going 12-0 in a regular season a couple of years ago. 34 wins in his first 3 years at Wisconsin. That's amazing. His overall record is, 42-14. So when you look at just overall record within the Big Ten, it's hard to find a better coach over the last 4, 5, 6 years in terms of a record that's not named Urban Meyer. I mean, the guy wins a ton of games. He's made a Rose Bowl. I believe he made a Rose Bowl. Plays for the Big Ten title almost every single year. And he can recruit. And for whatever reason, Wisconsin is able to attract certain recruits every year. When you look at their offensive line, it seems like an NFL offensive line every single year. It seems like they always have a running back that ends up playing in the NFL. Of course, right now they have Jonathan Taylor, who's rushed for 2,000 yards, I think, in 2 of his 3 seasons. Or no, both. He was a sophomore last year, junior this year. So 2,000 yards a season in his first 2 years. So they got another workhorse now. Wisconsin's a team you can almost you can almost guarantee they're going to win 10-plus games a year. Like I said, they've won 10 games every single year Chryst has been there, except for this past year, going 8-5. But that's where I have him on the list. All right, top 5 time. Number 5, I have Kirk Ferentz. I really like Kirk Ferentz. This is a guy I talk about a lot on this channel, just at random times over the course of the year. I think Kirk Ferentz, I've talked a lot about coaches getting the most out of the available talent that they have. You'll be hard-pressed to find a coach that does that better than Kirk Ferentz. Iowa never recruits at a high level. I don't remember the last time Iowa had a top 25 recruiting class, but take a look at this past year's draft from back, what was it, 2 months ago? Iowa had 2 players drafted in the first round. Tennessee didn't have a player drafted at all. So I'm just saying, the guy gets talent there. He knows how to develop it and put guys in the NFL. And another coach that seems to just overachieve every single year. And when you start looking at preseason predictions for 2019, a lot of people have Kirk Ferentz and Iowa picked to win that division. Again, the weaker of the two, the Big Ten West. Some folks going out on a limb with Nebraska. Some folks, of course, just pick Wisconsin every single year because it's the safe bet. But Iowa is in that mix this year to win that division. The Big Ten West, Kirk Ferentz, an excellent coach, does the most with not very much, really. Let's just be honest here. And that's where he comes in on the list. What is this, number 5? All right, number 4, I have Scott Frost. Now, I know some people who are sky high on Scott Frost, and I know some people who think he's going to be an abject failure, a complete disaster. Do I expect him to do at Nebraska in year 2 what he did at Central Florida in year 2? No. Of course, he turned a winless Central Florida team into a 13-0 top 10 team in his second year there. I don't think anyone expects that dramatic of an improvement year 2 at Nebraska, but I do think that you're going to see a big improvement there. I'm high on Scott Frost. I will admit I'm a little bit higher probably than the average person here, but this is where I have him on this list. He's got the quarterback he needs in Adrian Martinez, and that's the most important piece in almost any offense, but particularly the type of offense that Scott Frost likes to run. You got to have a quarterback who knows what he's doing, who can run around, who can make the throws, an athletic type of guy, and they have that with Adrian Martinez if he could stay healthy. He's in the weaker of the 2 divisions in the Big Ten, so if he's as good as a lot of people think he is, including me, it won't be long. If it's not this year, then maybe next year. Nebraska should be at the top of the Big Ten West year in and year out under Scott Frost. That's what I expect to happen. We'll see if it does, but I have him coming in this year. It's his second year at Nebraska, and I have him 4th on my list of Big Ten coaches. All right, 3rd, I have Jim Harbaugh. And look, I get it. People love to hate Jim Harbaugh. They rag on him. He can't win the big game. He can't beat Ohio State. He can't win his division. He can't win the conference. All of that is true. All of that is true, but don't let any of that distract you from the fact that the guy is winning a ton of games at Michigan. And we've pointed out some other coaches who took over programs that were just so-so, 4, 5, 6 win range, and actually got worse. Let's look at what Harbaugh's done at Michigan since he took over. All right, 10 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins. The 2 seasons before Harbaugh got to Michigan, 5 wins and 7 wins. He's averaging twice as many wins now as Michigan had the year before he got there with the 5-win season. So 10, 20, 30, what is this? 38 wins in 4 years. Not terrible. Again, I will agree. At some point, he's got to get over the hump. You can't just continue to tread water in college football, no matter what level you're at. If you're consistently winning 6 games, you're eventually going to get fired. If you're consistently winning 8 games, you're eventually going to get fired. If you're consistently winning 10 games, but nothing else, Mark Richt, you're eventually going to get fired. He's got to get over that hump. A lot of people think this is the year to do it, with Urban Meyer moving on from Ohio State and them having some question marks at the quarterback position. Plus, they get Ohio State at home. We'll see. But I think this is a fair spot for Harbaugh. And you guys know I am no Harbaugh fan at all. So I really tried to be objective here when I looked at this. And I think right now, he's a top 3 coach in the Big Ten. Number 2, I have James Franklin, and this is another one that I tend to be higher on than most people I see in my comments section. Maybe I'm stuck on what he did at Vanderbilt, I don't know. But when I look at James Franklin, I see another guy who's able to get the absolute most out of his talent. What he did at Vanderbilt was nothing short of a miracle. To get Vanderbilt to winning 9 and 10 games a year is absolutely amazing. If you're not somebody who's followed the SEC for years, Vanderbilt is traditionally like Rutgers in the Big Ten, or Indiana, or one of these teams that just hangs around a 3-4 win mark and can't make a bowl game year after year after year after year after year. And James Franklin had those guys winning 9 and 10 games a year. It was absolutely unbelievable to watch. Think about how Think about where Vanderbilt's at right now. Most people look at Vanderbilt right now and are surprised that they're winning the number of games they are. That's nowhere near, with Derek Mason there now, it's nowhere near what they were doing when James Franklin was there. This guy's an elite coach in my mind. He gets to Penn State. Now, Penn State does have a ton of football history and tradition. It has some advantages in terms of recruiting, but you can't really look at the overall picture of Penn State when you're judging James Franklin and what he's done there. You have to look at the state of Penn State football when he got there, and I think sometimes we forget this. He came to Penn State on the heels of the Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky abuse scandal that was uncovered there 4, 5, 6 years ago. Penn State was a pariah. Nobody wanted anything to do with Penn State. James Franklin, in my mind, took a risk even accepting this job at Penn State. Yes, traditionally speaking, Penn State is a huge upgrade in terms of head coaching positions over Vanderbilt, where he came from. But at the time, nobody would touch Penn State with a 10-foot pole. They had scholarship restrictions, I believe, and bowl bans. I mean, the general public was just absolutely disgusted by what went on there. It was just a terrible situation. James Franklin goes in, and he's got them competing for division titles in one of the toughest divisions in all of college football almost every single year. Now, the knock on James Franklin has been some in-game blunders that he's made, most notably last season at the end of the Ohio State game, where Penn State, I think, had a chance to win that game and called one of the most boneheaded plays I've ever seen, until I saw the SEC championship game and saw my Georgia Bulldogs try to run a fake punt for no damn reason. But I'm not going to go down that road because my heart doctor might be watching. But anyway, I admit I'm, again, with Franklin, I'm higher on him than most, but I think this guy's an elite level coach, and I have him number 2 on my list. All right, and that leaves Mark Dantonio as my number 1 coach in the Big Ten right now. Listen, it's not easy to make a college football playoff, and this guy found a way to do it. Try to count the number of coaches who have made it to a college football playoff. You won't get past both of your hands. It's not easy, and he managed to do it. Now, yes, it was one of the most embarrassing playoff performances we've seen, getting defeated 38-0, but he made it there, and that is not easy to do, and it's something I think you can't discount. Multiple 10-win seasons, multiple 11-win seasons, won the division multiple times, has won the Big Ten. I think he's got 3 either outright or shared Big Ten titles in the time he's been at Michigan State. Has been able to recruit some elite level talent. Everybody remembers their defensive backfield from a few years ago that was so good. That's really what got them to the college football playoff. And for Michigan State and Mark Dantonio to be able to have this amount of success as the second school in their state is remarkable. Think about some other second schools within some states. Auburn, of course, seems to be always inferior to Alabama. Georgia Tech, inferior to Georgia. It's always harder to succeed if you're at what most people consider to be the secondary school within a state, especially when the primary school is a traditional power, which Michigan is. And when we talked about Michigan already, yeah, they've been down, but part of the reason for that is Mark Dantonio. I think Harbaugh has, 1 win over Michigan State since he's been at Michigan? I mean, Michigan State has just been a better team than Michigan over the last 10 years or so. That hasn't historically been the case between Michigan and Michigan State, but it is right now, and I think a large reason for that is Mark Dantonio. And it's not like you can say, well, anybody can win at Michigan State. No, because we know somebody who used to be at Michigan State, and what was he doing when he was there? He was losing to teams like Illinois and Indiana, and of course I'm talking about Nick Saban. He did have 1 good year there, I think, where he won 8 or 9 games. But other than that, Nick Saban was winning 6, 7 games a year at Michigan State. Dantonio comes in, takes him to a college football playoff. So not easy to do. He did it, and I think you have to give a lot of weight to that. Like I said, there's not many teams or coaches who can make that claim. Of course, you're talking about Alabama and Saban, Clemson and Dabo Swinney, Jimbo Fisher and Florida State, Kirby Smart and Georgia, Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma. Washington has made it with Chris Peterson. Oregon made it 1 year, right? Who else has made it? Ohio State has made it with Urban Meyer. I probably left somebody out, but you get the point. It's not very many. It's less than 10. And I think that has to mean something. So anyway, that's my list. Be sure and let me know all the different ways that I'm wrong. Like I said, I think this is a really hard list to do, especially within the middle of the Big Ten. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see several coaching changes within the Big Ten over the next few years for different reasons. I think some coaches are so bad they're on their way out. And then I think there's a handful of coaches that are exceeding expectations and are starting to garner some interest from some bigger Power 5 names outside of the Big Ten. We'll see what happens with these coaching changes over the next few years. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you again real soon. Have a great morning.
Can you feel it coming in the air tonight? Hold on, hold on. Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am. Well, I was there and I saw what you did. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. So you can wipe off that green, I know